Good morning. Just gonna adjust for a second here. Hi, I'm Liz Libby. I'm half of the team at Rising Tide Women. And we are starting a little bit late this morning because I was about to hop on and my dog got into some stuff he wasn't supposed to get into. So that's always fun. And so I'll just introduce myself and our company for those of you who might not know us. We support folks from preconception all the way through the first year of postpartum and beyond, really, but that's kind of our area of expertise. And we do prenatal education. We do for both breastfeeding and birth. We do doula support. My amazing partner, Lindsay, does the bulk of our doula support. I am only taking clients who have a scheduled cesarean right now. And, hi, Lindsay. And what else? We do postpartum support. I do breastfeeding support. That is my wheelhouse, which is why I'm going to be talking to you today. I think Lindsay's going to hop on at the end, but it's largely going to be me today because we're talking about breastfeeding, and it's my jam. It's my thing. It's what I do. So, hi. So that's us. That's what we do. And we'll talk at the end, but I want to ask a favor before we get started. If you know someone who is due in September of this year, I'm going to ask you to share our page with them because we have something really special for them. And I will tell you more at the end of our video. But for now, let's go ahead and dive in. So we have our free Facebook community, which is the Rising Tide Women Sisterhood. And you don't have to be a mom to be in there. It's a private group, but it's a pretty open community. And I like to think of it as the kindest corner of the internet. People really are great about just being kind and supportive in there, and the women that are in there are just some of my favorite people. So if you're watching this and you're part of our sisterhood, we love you. You're the best. And so I put the call out earlier, well, not this week, but last week, asking if they had any questions they wanted us to talk about on the Monday Live videos. And most of the questions were about breastfeeding. So I figured I would field those. So let's just dive right in. One of the questions Sammy asked about, hi Sammy, breastfeeding with large breasts. And this is, people always think that if you have large breasts, it's going to be easy to breastfeed. I'm not sure why people think that, but it can be a challenge. And Sammy and anyone else who's dealing with this, I've been there. It's rough. And often, if you have larger breasts, you may find that you need to kind of hold and support that breast for the duration of your breastfeeding relationship, which is kind of a drag. But I remember walking around with my little one in like a front pack, a carrier. We used an Ergo for a long time. And, like nursing on the go, like while we're walking through the mall or whatever, and having to like have that one hand just kind of supporting things as we were going. So I think a lot of it is honestly just practice and finding what works for you. There's a great website called not Laid Back. It's about laid back breastfeeding, but it's called Biological Nurturing. So you can check out biologicalnurturing.com, and it's all about kind of laying back a little bit, having baby on top of you, tummy down. Whenever we're nursing, we want to have baby tummy toward the nursing parent. Just checking on my dog on the couch over there. So you want to kind of have baby on top of you, and often that will put the breast in kind of optimal position for baby to latch on really nicely. Even a large breast. And with that position, often moms find that they don't have to support the breast. So that's an option. We can put that link in the comments later, but biologicalnurturing.com, check it out. It's one of my favorite breastfeeding websites in general. So that's one idea. Another option that I've seen used is to actually roll up a face cloth and put it underneath the breast to kind of hike it up there a little bit and help get a better position for breastfeeding. So that one I haven't personally tried, but I've worked with a lot of parents who've used it with good results. So I think any time that you have a breastfeeding challenge that's kind of mechanical around whether it's baby having trouble latching on or especially positioning, you have to get really comfortable trying out different things and experimenting to see what works. What I see often in breastfeeding, particularly the early days, is we find one thing that works and then we stick to that one thing. And I really want to encourage you to change things up. If you feel like you need to, if that's like works every time and you feel like you're just crushing it, great, awesome. You don't change things up for no reason. But if you feel like you are looking for something a little bit different, it's a great idea to just change things up, experiment, because what didn't work 2 weeks ago might work today. You know, babies are so changeable. They change so quickly. So it's a good idea to just kind of see what works for you today, you know, because what worked yesterday may not work today, and what works today might not have worked last week. So just don't be shy about trying new things. So, you know, but hi, thanks. But yeah, I think just kind of experimenting, seeing what works for you with your breast size. And that goes for folks with smaller breasts too, because that can also sometimes be a challenge with positioning. So I hope that's helpful, Sammy. It's a great question, and it's a question we get a lot. Sarah asked about breastfeeding after a C-section. And that's a great question because it's a challenge. You know, and a lot of people ask about the pain meds. So, you know, in an ideal world, we wouldn't be giving you pain meds and having you breastfeed. But the ones that we use postpartum and the meds that they use during surgery, during a surgical birth, are considered safe for breastfeeding. And as somebody pointed out, the benefits far outweigh the risks. You know, we don't want you in severe pain after your surgery. We want you to be able to bond with your baby. You know, I think one of the concerns that comes up is more around if you have pain meds on board, you are going to be sleepy, and it's going to be a challenge for you to maybe stay awake while you're nursing baby. So you just want to make sure that you have good support in the room with you while you're handling baby. You don't necessarily want to be in the hospital bed falling asleep with baby on you, because that's not the safest place to be falling asleep with baby. You know, and hospital floors are hard. So that actually is the more common concern with those pain meds post-cesarean birth. So, you know, other things that come up around breastfeeding after a cesarean are, a lot of it is positioning. I mean, you can't be sitting upright, and a lot of our breastfeeding positions that we teach new parents really rely on the parent being upright. So, you want to really, again, that laid back breastfeeding, that biological nurturing is a great resource for a post, you know, for a cesarean birth, because you're going to want to be resting, and you don't have to have baby with their feet down on your belly. If your belly's tender, you can put baby across your chest so that their body is kind of resting on your other breast. You can put them even up with their bottom on your shoulder. It's a little weird, but it keeps them well clear of the whole abdominal area, which can often be pretty tender. If you've had a surgical birth, you'll be in the hospital, so you can also ask your nurses for positioning help. What we don't want to be seeing with that is, you know, sometimes hospital staff feels like it's their job to just get that baby on the breast. And like, yes, we want the baby on the breast, but it's really hard to, you also want to give space for the mom to be learning that process. We don't want to be just going into a room every 3 hours and screwing baby on the breast and calling it a day, because that's just not really supportive of this learning process. So we want to really be in the hospital supporting parents to find their way, to find what works for them, you know. So if you are in the hospital, most of the postpartum staff is going to be great and so supportive. But, you know, if you find someone who's like, let's just get that baby on there, I want to encourage you to advocate for your baby and say, can we just have like a little more time to just kind of be peaceful and learn this? There's really no moment where it's like, oh my gosh, if we don't feed the baby now, everything's going to be terrible. That moment doesn't really exist. It becomes a little more urgent if you have like blood sugar issues, but even then, keeping baby skin to skin is really supportive of that blood sugar, and it's also really supportive of getting them nursing, which is really what they need. So it's a great question. Thanks, Sarah. I hope that's helpful. And if you have more questions, you know where to reach me. And then a couple of other people, and I apologize because I don't remember who it was. I know Katie was in there, but asking about breastfeeding after you introduce solids, because it gets really murky. You know, we have these like rules about nursing, but then once you introduce solids, like what happens then, right? So I always, you know, in the lactation world, we talk about like food. It's like we have to have cutesy rhymes, so it's a cutesy rhyme, but food before one is just for fun. So we're not generally relying on solid foods for a ton of nutrition during that first year of life. So before baby's first birthday, we really want to be introducing food as like a textural experience, getting used to eating, and you might have a baby who chows down. I had one of those where my kid was like, this is the best thing ever. I'm going to just eat all the food I can get. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, we want to just be supporting that continued intake of breast milk or formula if you're formula feeding. So generally what we recommend is nursing first and then offering supplemental foods or complementary foods, as they're more accurately called, after a nursing session. So you might like, you know, if you want to introduce breakfast as your first meal, which by the way, you can do any meal or no meal, like a snack. Like there's really no rules around introducing solid foods that are really supported by science. So again, feel free to experiment and find out what works for you. You know, you also don't have to introduce rice cereal as your first food. There's a whole school of thought that processed rice cereal is maybe not the best first food for babies. So think about that too as you're introducing solids. You know, fruits and vegetables are great. There's growing movement towards adding meat as a first food because of the concerns around babies getting enough iron. So, you know, do your research as always, as parents tend to be really good at. So do your research, you know, find what works for your family. But, you know, mashed sweet potatoes is a great first food. But anyways, as far as breastfeeding, you know, feel free to just experiment and introduce it here, but always low key. I'm a big fan of just keeping your meal times pretty chill. There's no time where like, oh, if baby doesn't start eating solid foods right now, everything's going to be terrible. That's not really how babies work. You know, I'm always telling new parents, nothing is written in stone. If you introduce solid foods and you feel like it's overwhelming or it's not going well, back off and go back to it another time. It's not like you did this and now you have to keep doing it forever. You know, and if you miss a day of solids because you're overwhelmed and your baby just wants to nurse, that's fine. It's totally cool. So, you know, we tend to way overthink these things, but just offer your baby. You know, if you are interested in baby-led weaning, if you've heard of that, it's a great philosophy. I'm a big fan personally. Baby-led weaning, and weaning just in this sense, it's from the UK. So weaning in the UK just means introducing solid foods. They call them weaning foods. So it doesn't mean what we might think it means. It's a little counterintuitive for us in the US, but baby-led weaning just means letting your baby feed themselves. So you might do like bits of chopped up avocado, or, you know, you might even just do table foods, whatever you're eating. I always tell the story that my youngest, we tried feeding him baby food for like a month, like 6 to 7 months. And he always would act so offended. Like he would be like, why would you put that in my mouth? You know? He was like, I'd rather eat sand, which was totally the case. He would rather eat sand. But, you know, his first food that he ever actually ate was out of desperation. I was like eating this beautiful homemade chicken curry, and I was like, try some of this. And he thought it was like the best thing ever. So, you know, if you have a strong family history of food allergies, you might want to go a little careful on that. But if you don't have a family history of food allergies, you know, you can feel free to introduce table foods. You know, I wouldn't go for like fried clams or something right away. I don't know. But, you know, do what works. So, you know, and another question that got asked was breastfeeding after a year. Like, yes, variations of normal. Thank you. Baby-led weaning doesn't work for everyone. I personally love it, but I've seen plenty of folks that it didn't work for. So, and that is okay. You don't have to do it, you know. Some folks do homemade baby food purees, and those are great. And some folks do jarred, and those are also great. You know, we all get to do things in our own way, and that's totally our vibe. As we want to support you where you're at, you know. We just like to give you all the options. That's all. So, you know, after the first year, breastfeeding it becomes a little kind of loosey-goosey, like there's no rules, you know? And also it's not like a switch flips. It's not like baby's first birthday, now instantly their primary food source is food. You know, it really depends on the kid. Some kids have been building to that and they're, you know, already nursing less and eating more food, and that's their normal. And then some kids are not eating a lot of solid food. And so, you know, you might just kind of switch your tactics really gently. Kids don't do well with like, let's change everything on you today. Some kids do, but most kids don't. So, you know, you might then switch to like, maybe we stick to what we're doing because it's working. Maybe we just have you, you know, nurse and then offer solid foods. Maybe we switch that up into like, maybe we work towards 3 meal times a day. And that's pretty normal. You know, but again, do what works for you. You know, like as long as your baby is gaining weight well and they're growing and they're meeting their milestones, you have some wiggle room to play with. So I want to just encourage you to like, be yourself and do what feels right to you, because we live in a culture where we don't encourage people to trust their parenting instincts. And, you know, you want to rely on your care providers, but also trust your parenting instincts, because I'm going to wager that your parenting instincts are pretty good. You are doing a great job already. So own it. And also, you know, read that info, but also do what feels right for your family. You know, that's like a big topic, is also listen to your gut. So another question that got asked was like, how do I know when to stop breastfeeding? How will I know when my baby's weaning? And this is a great question, because typically babies under a year don't necessarily self-wean. And I know there's people out there right now going, hold on, my baby did. It does happen sometimes. I don't know your experience. I wasn't there. Sometimes what we see is what's called a nursing strike, and where something happens and baby is just like, I can't deal with this right now. And they refuse the breast. And this is so stressful for parents. It's so stressful. There is nothing more stressful for a breastfeeding mom than a baby who won't breastfeed, because it just kicks up all kinds of anxiety about, how do I maintain my milk supply? How do I get my baby to eat? You know, so we can work with that. That's a more specific question than that we could do a whole video just on that, honestly. But, you know, I always think about like, if that happens, then okay, how do we preserve the milk supply? But it's usually temporary. And some parents will at that point decide like, you know what, it's not working for me anymore and it's just time to wean. And that's okay. I always just want to say like, breastfeeding is a relationship. And this is kind of speaks to that. How do you know when to wean? Breastfeeding is a relationship between you and your baby, and it has to work for both parties. And so if you find that it's just not working for you, it doesn't feel okay anymore, it's up to you. I want to encourage you to reach out and get some help and support around making it work, making it more doable. But if you also decide that like, I'm done, that's okay. I don't want you to have any guilt around that. We don't need to be carrying around all of this guilt. Thank you, Lindsay. Because we don't. We have enough on our plates to worry about. So, but if you decide like this is not quite working, but it's really important to me, then we want to help you. We want to support you with that. So that would be time to reach out and find a really good IBCLC. After a year, and usually it's like a while after a year, but you might see babies will sometimes, or toddlers by that point, will sometimes drop nursing sessions. And a lot of parents then kind of switch to this, like, don't offer, So if as baby's eating more solid foods, maybe they're like, coming up on 2 years old or however old, a great kind of really gentle weaning strategy is to just not offer the breast. And so they'll ask for it when they want it. Often around 18 months, they start wanting it a lot. So just ride that out. If you find yourself in that spot, just know that it's fairly common. But that way, like, you're not telling them no, but they get to kind of decide when they want it. And that works for a lot of people. That's sort of a really gentle strategy. And again, I could talk about how to wean. I could do a whole other video on that. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but, some moms will also, when they're ready to wean, will also kind of redirect. And like, if baby wants to snuggle, they would say like, oh, how about, or if baby wants to nurse, they would say, how about a snuggle instead? Or do you want like a cup of milk? That was our go-to, was like, how about milk in a cup? And that became like the thing. And so my youngest would often start like, milk in a cup, So that's a kind of some good gentle tactics, is just redirecting. And that's when you're ready. As far as how to know when you're ready to wean, I can't answer that for you. You got to go with what feels right to you and what feels right to your kid, because it's a relationship. It has to work for both parties. So if you feel like your kid really still needs that and you're okay with continuing, there's no reason not to. And we do sometimes get, I hope they're well-meaning, comments from family members or from even strangers about like, oh, when are you going to wean that kid? But you're the parent. Again, you have good parenting instincts, and I want you to trust them. You know your child. It's perfectly biologically normal to nurse your child as long as they want to. And we have some cultural weirdness around that, and just kind of know that that's cultural weirdness. It's not about you and your baby. It's not about whether or not you're a good parent, because I can tell you right now that you are a good parent. You're doing a great job. So just kind of take all of that input with a grain of salt and think about like, is this working for me? Is this working for my baby? And people wean for a million different reasons. And it's really no one's business when or why you wean your baby, My whole thing is like, I just want you to have the support to keep going as long as you want to. I want you to meet your own goals. And for some folks, that's 6 months. For some folks, that's 2 years. And those are both great goals. So, and everywhere in between and outside of that is also a great goal. So that's all. I want to just really encourage you to kind of turn that questioning a little bit inward and think about what works for me, what works for my child. And also you don't have to decide. You don't have to be like, I'm going to breastfeed for 2 years and that's it. You could decide every day and say, you know what, like today we're going to go full speed ahead. Tomorrow we'll see. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to plan it all out in advance. It's not something you have to decide in advance. You can start that weaning process when it feels right. So I hope that answers that question. I think we've answered all the breastfeeding questions. So the last one I want to talk about for my dear friend Katie, she asked about accepting your postpartum body. And this is a question that is near and dear to my heart because accepting and loving your body is a thing that I feel so passionately about. I am a fat woman, and when I say that, it's just a descriptor. I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm not putting myself down because I'm comfortable being fat, and using that word. And I want to just take that kind of weirdness away from that. Whenever I say that, people are like, "Oh no, sweetie, you're not." And I'm like, is it really so bad that you can't even let me admit that to myself? Is that the worst thing I could be? I'd so much rather be fat than be mean. Like, I don't know. Or selfish. So, I'm getting a little off topic, but I want to encourage us to think about the ways that our culture tells us our bodies are not enough. And I notice when I post on Instagram, I use the postpartum hashtag, and I notice that we get followed by a whole lot of fitness coaches and people marketing supplements and things, and they are marketing them directly to postpartum women. And I think, I'm just going to say it, maybe I'm going to lose some Instagram followers over this, but I think that is shady as heck. It is not okay to prey on the insecurities of postpartum women to sell your stuff. It's not okay. But we get this messaging, and particularly after a baby, because your body looks different. No matter what kind of birth or pregnancy you had, no matter how quickly you bounce back. Yes, Becca. No matter how quickly you bounce back, your body looks different. And that is okay. You created a human being. You grew a human being and then expelled that human from your body through a lot of hard work. Whichever way you gave birth, it was a lot of hard work. So I want to encourage you to honor your body. Thank your body. Even if you don't feel like it, the more you say those words to yourself, the more you're going to feel them. One strategy that has really helped with me to get over my own disordered eating and my own body image issues has been to look at pictures of other women who don't meet this kind of cultural beauty ideal that we have, which is like a thin, white, woman with kind of a boyish body. And that's our cultural beauty ideal. But I want to encourage you to broaden your definition of beauty. I love seeing, my Instagram feed is full of like Jessamine Stanley, Body Pause Panda. There are so many great feeds, but really look at pictures of other women who have bodies who don't necessarily fit that cultural ideal, but they're gorgeous and also confident. I want to really encourage you to just notice that really what's beautiful about other women is confidence. And you can have that. And like I tell my kids, you can fake it until it's real. Fake it till you make it. The more you pretend you're confident, the more confident you will actually become. But also just know that your body looks different. And you don't have to kill yourself trying to reach this body that maybe you used to have, or maybe you never had. Because that's okay. You don't need to get your body back. It didn't go anywhere. It's still the same body. And I want to really encourage us to examine that messaging that we're getting about how we should look, how we should act. I want to encourage you to own who you are, own what you look like, because I know a lot of you that are watching, I know you, maybe in real life, maybe online, you're gorgeous. We always see ourselves so much more critically than everybody else. And I could talk about this for hours. I could literally do entire videos about body positivity. But if you are looking for more, there's a great group there's a group that I'm in that I love called Healthy Habits, Happy Moms. And it's very much around, hi, Kristen. It's around creating healthy habits, but like truly healthy habits. It's not around, they do talk about weight loss, but so much of what they talk about is self-love. I also love Summer Ananan's group, Breaking the Rules, and it's kind of anti-diet culture, and I love it. I'm in there and I think it's great. But if you're looking for sort of a beginner's guide, you can check out Embrace, which is a film you can watch online. It's about body image. It's a great kind of eases you in. I kind of wish she went a little further, but it's a great beginner. It's a great place to start with body positivity. You can also check out, just Google health at every size. And there are a lot of websites that talk about health at every size, which is this, or at any size. We abbreviate it as HAES. And it really talks about like how to start living your life without being in this holding pattern. Because I know when I was kind of immersed in diet culture, I really felt like I had to wait until I was at my goal weight. Like I couldn't live the life that I wanted until my body looked the way I wanted it to look. And I wasted a lot of time that way. I was really focused on how I looked, and I wasn't focused on what I was doing and how I was loving myself. So I want to really encourage you, if you have your health goals as well, think about, are they health goals or are they appearance goals? Yes. And I love, you're right. And this is like Susanna saying that one of the things we can do to help our daughters is to also be mindful of our body image. The way that we talk about our bodies is the way that our daughters learn about how to think about their bodies. So I am really careful with this with my boys too, because I want them to know that women are all different shapes and sizes, and that's awesome. So they love to point out my squishy belly, and my response is like, isn't it great? It's so soft to snuggle with. Even though inwardly I might be like, oh, I'm self-conscious about my belly. But just letting them know that like, it's great. Bodies come in different sizes. So, I want to encourage you to just be so gentle with yourself, really talk to yourself the way that you would talk to your best friend. So if you find yourself saying like, oh, I look so gross today, what would you say to your best friend who said that? You'd be like, girl, no, you look fabulous. And even if you are a mess today, you're rocking that mess look. Enjoy it. So really think about your self-talk as well. So I'm going to wrap up. I could go on for a long, long time about this. Because we really do live immersed in diet culture. And yes, this is our bodies as mothers are a variation of what a woman's body looks like. Exactly, Lindsay. And we own it. I don't want my boys growing up thinking that Barbie is the ideal, because there's like one person on earth who looks like that. And I'm a little worried about her, so I think maybe you guys know who I'm talking about, the real life Barbie person. But yeah, it's not healthy. So we want to really encourage, and I tell my kids, it's just not polite to comment on other people's bodies. And I wish adults knew that, honestly. All right. So I'm going to wrap up then, because I could talk about that for a long time. So I want to give a little bit of a teaser, and I think Lindsay might hop on in a second here. I want to give a little bit of a teaser about this program that we are putting together. I am so excited about it. Let me see if I can get Lindsay on too. So we are launching this program. Our tentative title, we're calling them, hi!
Hi!
So are we calling them lifeboats? Is that what we're calling this?
I think so.
I think so. I like it. So, Lifeboat is the name of the program, and it is going to be launching pretty soon. We're still hammering out details, but if you know someone who is due in September, anytime in September, this is for them. If you're due later than September, or if you know someone due later than September, we will also have an option for them, but that's our kickoff. And what can we say about it? I don't want to give too much away, but I want to say, oh my God, Kristen, we're going to talk. You have to join. It's required, Kristen. So, yeah, so it's going to be great. It's going to be kind of a really awesome support program, and it's going to be more than a one-off. So that's all I want to say. So, yeah. How are you today, Lindsay?
I'm
Can
good.
you hear me?
I'm good. I can. Yeah, the connection's a little funky, but that's okay.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for the program as well. I think it provides detailed own.
Hi. My connection blinked out for a minute there.
Did it all go away? I don't know. I was just talking.
That's okay. I'm sure it was great.
I don't
missed
know.
it.
If you caught it? Yeah. But anyway.
I didn't. What do we have going on this week, Lindsay? Do you have a busy week with appointments and I don't know.
Yes, I do. I have a very, very busy week with
Awesome. So, yeah, this past month has been wild for us Rising Tide women. And we are just so excited to have all these clients that we can love on. It's been wild, but it's been a lot of fun. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap. And thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Lindsay, thanks for hopping on. I always want our people to be able to see you. All right. Have a beautiful Monday.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Mwah.